It's now 5:15, and the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners work session for June the 11th, 2024 is now in session. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, may I make the motion to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting?
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Mr. Krantz?
This is the vote to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting, June 11th, 2024. Commissioner Rutledge.
Aye.
Commissioner Chismore.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Chance.
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
The agenda is approved.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. First on our agenda for this evening is a presentation regarding Safe Streets for All, and I understand Mr. Small is going to speak to us first.
Sure. The many months ago, over a year ago, the Town of Bel Air, City of Aberdeen, and City of Havre de Grace partnered together and received a grant from the United States Department of Transportation for a Safe Streets for All action plan. Now, an action plan is somewhat the first step in a process of improving the ability for a town or a city to become to achieve zero deaths, traffic deaths, and zero serious injuries on their streets. As part of that, the town, or the partnership of Aberdeen and Havre de Grace and Bel Air, solicited the firm of EXP to perform the action plan, and tonight they'll present that plan to you, and then maybe possibly, if they have time, to talk about the next steps. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dan Williams, the principal with EXP, and he can introduce his team.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, on a beautiful evening. So I'm Dan Williams, Mid-Atlantic Transportation Vice President, and I'm the pick on this particular project. And it has been really exciting. This is a cool, interesting thing. And just looking at the three of us here, so Bo is a dedicated, very experienced traffic engineer. It's personal to him. Pat has a ton of experience with Montgomery County. She led the charge in Montgomery County on just this type of thing. And I myself, I was MDTA's chief engineer. I dealt with safety all the time. You can imagine 95 and everything like that. So it's personal to us as well. And this action plan brings a lot of great things together in one document that's going to be a great tool for you to be able to just even look at, go through the data, understand what we're finding out there, and even finding out what the community has for you as well, because there was public outreach. And you can really get a good sense of what we've identified for you is a good path forward to the Vision Zero by 2030. And one of the, I'm sorry? Oh, 2040, I'm sorry, it was 30. One of the things that I really liked about this is that this wasn't a desktop exercise sitting behind a computer looking at Google Street View. You certainly can't find a lot or feel a lot from an intersection by doing that. So we were at the field, we were doing our own investigations and making sure, that things kind of line up and making sure that, yeah, this is an issue. And it was a very collaborative effort. So obviously Kevin was involved at the helm, but Chief Moore, State Highway, the county, we're all involved in providing input. And then, like I said, with the public involvement as well. And so I really just kind of wanted to kick off for these guys. These are the SMEs. They know much better. So I'll give it to you, Pat, and I'll sit down.
Thank you again, Dan, for leading the charge. Both Bo and myself have been very, very hands-on with this project. We worked closely with the Traffic Safety Committee, which, as Dan said, consisted of representatives from the county, the three municipalities, Bel Air, Aberdeen, and Havre de Grace, Police Chief Moore, representatives from State Highway. So having everyone's perspective, given that this was our first time in your city, your town, it really, and then having the public input exercises on February 12th, some of you attended the workshop. And behind me, and take your time, you're welcome to look at this later if you haven't already. We had Vision Zero boards, Safe Streets for All. We also talk about the type of upgrades for mitigation and countermeasures that have been successful. So with that, Bel Air has 9 intersections. We want to talk as thoroughly as we can in a short period of time because, we already calculated 5 minutes per intersection. It's about 40 minutes. So Bo is going to talk really fast. Just so you know, you'll all receive an electronic copy of the report. It's 197 pages with the appendices. It's a great weekend read. If you'd like to keep it on your coffee table, it's very graphic. We have a lot of graphics. There's a lot of data. Don't be fooled. We really, Bo is our traffic engineer. All the traffic data that we received and crash data, we tried to distill into a format that was easily understandable. But in the appendices, we have all of the crash data. So there are 3, before letting Bo go forward, there will be 3 pages for each intersection. The first page is what we call a snapshot, and that tries to comprehensively list everything that we either observed in the field or if we've received input from the public through the public workshop or through our online survey. Also in the back of the report, we have all of the questions from the online survey and responses. So, it's one thing to analyze data. It's another thing to really hear firsthand from your constituents and the people that live and work here. So we are going to skim over some of the identified deficiencies, but if you do want Bo to take a little more time at one particular item, please, let him know. But our thought is that we're trying to go through 9 intersections within 30 minutes. Okay, and so with that, I'll give it to Bo.
My name is Bo Yuan with Indesco. On this project, we're helping ESP to do the analysis for traffic and the crash. So here, let me try to go through all the 9 intersections very quickly. So first one is B1. You can see on the small screen, on the big screen. B1 is the Courthouse Square at South Bond Street. On this map, we are showing the map of the intersection right here. So here you have a main Bond Street here. You have Albee Street and Courtland Street and Thomas Street right here. So deficiencies we noticed in the field and from public workshops includes, number 1, we have the lack of visibility of the Courtland Street pedestrian crossing for the left-turn vehicles. There will be this crosswalk right here on Courtland, near Courtland Street. That's crosswalk here, right here. And also the second issue is that the Courtland Street crosswalk is not signalized right here. It's very close, about only 150 feet downstream of the crosswalk at Office Street. The problem is that when drivers, when they pass this green light right here at the office, they tend to speed up, and then they hit this crosswalk, and that creates an unsafe situation for pedestrians. As we know, I think in 2017, there was a pedestrian days happened in this location right here. And then next issue is that the existing crosswalks are not up to standard. As you can see, they are the parallel, the 2 bars crosswalks. The new standard, if I can show you right now, is on the next page right here. This is a new style crosswalk marking. It's called a continental style. It's called also a high visibility crosswalk, which is 24 inches, a wide bar with the spacing somewhere between 24 to 36 inches. That's new standard for the crosswalk style based on the SHA standard. And then if I zoom in to make this more visible for you. Oh, no, this is the wrong location. All right. And then also we noticed that the existing push button signs for this crosswalk at Office Street, the signs are faded and they are not readable for any pedestrians, and especially for handicapped pedestrians. And also we noticed that people jaywalking on Bond Street right here, as shown on this photo right here, I guess because they have a parking lot on the west side of the street and office on the east side, and people, they just feel it's convenient to just cross at anywhere on the street rather than in a marked crosswalk. So now let's go to the counter mirrors. Here we have short-term, mid-term, and long-term counter mirrors. Short-term is typically somewhere can be done within 3 years, and mid-term is somewhere between 3 to 5 years, and long-term take more than 5 years to complete, to install. Let's zoom in so you can see them better. All right, right here, let's go from right to left. So here we have these kind of mirrors. S3 shown here is to install raised crosswalk crossing Cortlandt Street. That will help drivers to slow down and yield to pedestrians. S4 here is to upgrade the crosswalk to be the continental style for more visibility. And S5 here is to install proper warning signs to let drivers know they need to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. And S4 here, again, is to upgrade the crosswalks to continental style for these two crosswalks here. This S6 short term is to perform a speed study along Bond Street to see if is there a need to reduce speed limit down to 25 to 20 or somewhere, because we were told there is a speeding problem. So maybe speed study is required. Speed study is required to see if there any need to reduce the speed limit here from 30 to 25. And then S1 here is in front of this building here, is to install bike racks, so people riding bicycles, they can find space to park their bikes. S2 here is a deficiency that if you ever drive down Office Street, making this left turn on to Bond, you will see that you are seeing two signal heads far away on your right hand side, somewhere here, instead of in front of you. So this short-term kind of mirrors to move those two traffic signal heads further left to align up with the traffic direction. And then if we move on to the midterms, for the midterm right here, we feel that it's a good idea to propose to signalize these two approaches, including Thomas and Cortlandt intersections, and combine with this existing signal at Office to be one jumbo intersection, so that all traffic movements and all crosswalks will be controlled by the same traffic controller. And right here, we propose midterm to consider to build to extend the curb out into Bond Street, reduce the existing 3 lanes to be only 2 lanes, because we found the traffic volume is pretty low. 2 lanes should be sufficient to handle all the traffic volume, even during the AM, PM peaks. So by doing that, we can reduce the crossing distance on Bond Street, and also create the opportunity for landscape along the Bond Street. And traffic calming also to help to reduce traffic speed. And this curb extension can include this block, and also can go downstream further down to make the Bond Street corridor to be 2 lanes all the way down to near Philadelphia Avenue. And for the longer term, we consider that we can consider to add bike lanes on Bond Street with separation from traffic. That's all for this intersection.
We recognize that there are a number of state roads as part of these intersections, but this will give you kind of a launching pad for a conversation. And some of these short-term improvements, signage, pavement markings, providing better visibility for pedestrians crossing can be done rather quickly. The longer term, mid to longer term options will require conversations. So I think having this action plan in place will provide you with, a starting point.
All right, next one is the intersection of the Kenmore and South Main. Is right there by the high school. If I zoom in to show a better picture right here. All right, so this is Kenmore Street, and this is Main Avenue. Main Street. This is high school. So deficiencies here includes we saw that pedestrians or high school students, they're jaywalking, as shown in this photo right here. The reason is that they either park in the office area here and walk to the school, or they may come from the neighborhoods in this area and come in across the streets to walk to the school without using the crosswalks. And then number two is the lighting seems to be insufficient at the intersection of the Main and Linwood right here, as the intersection where we have conflicts between traffic and the pedestrians. Number three, this is existing marking north of the island median. They are outdated again. They are not continental style. And then number four, this is funny because we saw that if you zoom in furthermore, you can see. Maybe you can see here, right here. There are a pair of handicap ramps on the curbs, but there's no crosswalk marking, so they, I don't know why, but I think they should be removed to not mislead any pedestrians to cross here at an unsafe location. If I go back, and then next one would be the right here, even we have a marked crosswalk, but there's no sign to warn drivers to yield to pedestrians right here at this corner. Next one, on Eastern Avenue, there is no crosswalk marking. And then the problem is right here at this location right here is that the people driving, making this turn, they have some difficulty when to see the high school kids walking on this crosswalk. Okay, sure. Let's move on to the mirrors now. All right, let's start from Kenmore Avenue right here. Because this is a school zone, we think it's a good idea to put in some kind of traffic calming measures, including the driver feedback signs to tell drivers they need to slow down. What's the speed limit here? You're driving, what speed, so you need to slow down. And also the during school time, maybe consider lower speed limit just during school time with signs and flash beacons here. And also at this turn here to install pedestrian warning signs, so drivers need to know they need to slow down and yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. And at this turn, this curve here, we need to install chevron signs to warn drivers about this oncoming curve coming up, so they can slow down, to make the curve. And at this location right here, I think right now, because the turns are traffic turning movements are having a lot of conflicts, it's better based on a low volume. I think it's better to propose to change Linwood into a ride-in and ride-out only street, and also extend this median further longer. So to remove this left turn from High Street onto Linwood, make the traffic movement with much less conflicts, make it much safer, just for pedestrians and also for drivers also. And also for Main Street, we based on the low volume. If you look at the volume, right, you only have a one lane coming from Kenmore, make this left turn here, and a one lane coming from South Main. So there's really no need to have 3 lanes right here. So we consider to reduce one lane to turn into either landscape or bike lane, all the way to somewhere before the signal. At signal, we still need to have a turn base, but at least for some distance on the block, we can have only 2 lanes with to have potential bicycles. Okay, any question, or do we move on to the next one?
Yes,
Yes.
a question on Linwood Avenue, making that a left-out, right-in type of thing. Do we know how much traffic goes to there and how it's going to impact Homestead?
We have
With
traffic
development
volumes in
back
the report, the volume is very low. And also we had neighborhoods, I think there are other streets they can go in and out to reach their destination on Linwood. They don't have to make this left turn right here.
On Linwood?
Yeah.
Right there. So if they wanted to go out toward Abington Festival, they couldn't go out of that road anymore.
Right, so because of the one, and I think that based on the the network, I think that they can either go on the back road, make a turn this way, come back.
Yeah, because we want to go to the right.
And also on the, I think there's a back
Or
road
they-
somewhere here to go that direction
I guess
also.
they'd have to go out, there's also McPhail and Idlewild.
Idlewild. One thing to remember that is the long-term possible solution for this intersection.
That
Oh,
was-
long term also, we consider the potential runabout here. So here we're showing this, just footprint of a regular one-lane runabout, showing at this dash circle. So you can see there is a lot of constraints based on the land use and the existing buildings and all these.
Right.
So this just shows that there are a lot of constraints. It's pretty,
Right.
there are a lot of constraints.
Okay, and the Linwood is a midterm proposal?
Correct, yes.
Midterm.
So, yeah, which is, it's midterm, yes.
Midterm?
Midterm, yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, next one. Next one is the intersection of the Main Street and the Allendale and the Ma and Pa Trail right here. So this is Main Street right here, and this is the West Allendale and East Allendale on the other side. They have an offset between the two lakes. And right here is the signal flashing yellow beacons for the trail crossing. So we found that, well, let me just talk about the main issues here. The main issue, one of the main issues is that there are flashing yellow beacons without any sign to require drivers to stop and yield. It just say something like a pedestrian sign there. And also the push button message to tell the pedestrian, they only says something like the beacons are flashing. It doesn't tell pedestrian what to do. It caused some confusion for the pedestrians. Another issue here is that this West and East Allendale, they are offsetted. Ideally, if they can be aligned, it will be nice for the movements and for the pedestrian and the driver movements. Another issue here is that we know that the trail come from further west side, continue from here, and then use the sidewalk, and then make a sharp turn at the car wash business, another turn at the brewery, and then go across Main Street. The issue here is that right here, the turn is very sharp, and bicycle may have the possibility to fall down on their bike and then fall into the pavement, which is possible. And also it's lacking any a wayfinding sign for people to know continue on the trail. If I move on to the countermeasures. Oh,
Brian,
yeah.
every, there are maps for countermeasures, but there's also a table that lists the short, mid, and long-term
Yes.
recommendations. So if you prefer to read a table and potential cost estimates, you
Mhm.
can look at this. But if you also want to see the location, and you can also flip to the map.
Yep. All right, it's from the trail crossing signal right here. We are proposing to install more upgrades to this location right here. That include additional flashing lights, Because right now, there are only two flashing yellow beacons on the left arm, which is not sufficient. We propose to install more flashing beacons to make it more visible for drivers, and also to remove the existing very confusing signs, replace with standard signs as stay allow to stop for pedestrian in crosswalks. Make sure the drivers will be required to stop rather than just to yield or. And then we also propose to revise a push button message to say from yellow lights are flashing, which is very confusing, to specifically required to say that wait to cross Main Street, wait. And then when lights are flashing, they say, oh, we will be turning on to rapid ticking for the visually impaired pedestrians. And furthermore, we think it's good to upgrade this to standard more effective flashing beacons. Yeah, sure.
Another component of this as well is the education. So in any opportunity to provide a brochure or on your website to help explain what the flashing beacons mean, because this might be, a new type of traffic control that they're not accustomed to. So we found in the past that it's helpful to provide some kind of an education component, be it on your website or at a flyer that can be passed out at the site, or brochures that you have available in your town hall. So.
Yes. Another option we propose that to even upgrade this from flashing beacons or flashing lights into it's called a Maryland pedestrian signal, which has the green ball, yellow ball, and the red ball. So essentially, it's like a full color traffic signal. So drivers there are required to stop at the red light to yield to pedestrians in the trail as midterm. As to work with the SHA or others.
And Harford County, we have both
Yes.
representatives at
Yeah.
our meetings, and this has been discussed with
The county and the
representatives.
SHA, yes. And then we know that.
So you're saying that the flashing lights would actually change to red?
Yes, the proposed Maryland pedestrian signal will have the red ball. It's much
Okay.
more effective than the flashing beacons. And then, Mr. Main things we are proposing that, okay, so right here at the intersection right here, we know that these two old buildings, there will be demolished and will developed by the brewery to be parking lot. So for the future, we propose that the developer should consider to make this sidewalk wide enough to be a shared use path. The trail can be running from the current footprint to this new wide shared use path footprint, and then continue to other part of the trail. Yeah, okay. And then also we can propose to, in the future, or it's more like long-term or mid-term, to line up east side and west side Allendale to be aligned street. And also trying to propose curb extension on Allendale to shorten the crossing distance for pedestrians, while we have to consider the truck movements in and out for this leg, because there are businesses here. And also bike lanes can be considered between this location to the next intersection, because there is a planned bike lanes on, I think it's the US 1, right? US 1 here on this block. All right, next one. Next one is Morse Mill Road and North Hickory Avenue. So right here, as you can see, this is Morse Mill Road, and this is US 1 and Hickory Avenue. Main deficiency is that there's a missing sidewalk between this section to the intersection. Is no sidewalk. And also, as signal, although we have signal for the traffic, there is no signal for pedestrians to cross street, and also there are no crosswalks. We know that SH is adding crosswalks on the east leg and I think south leg also, but they're still missing the north leg and the east leg. So if we go to the countermeasures,
They did start construction.
yes, right there. It's right here. So you can see the photos. They're already building sidewalks and handicap. This is on, I believe it's on the northwest corner. If we go to our page here, we're proposing to install the missing sidewalk on the northeast corner to connect the sidewalk to the intersection, and also propose new ADA ramps, crosswalks, the push buttons, and the countdown timer for pedestrians for all 4 legs. And also some other changes, including the backplate for signals to make sure the signal heads are more visible for drivers. And also, we propose to add bike racks on this corner of the nearest shopping center, so people can ride bicycle and park their bicycle and walk to the shops to buy their things.
This is part of the East Coast Freeway.
Yes. The bike lane East Coast freeways, the bikeway is on East Leg and then North Leg. In the longer term, we think it's a good idea to close down the access that are very close to the intersection right here and there, because they already have other access points. So removing these will help traffic movements. Next intersection, Pennsylvania Avenue and Hickory Avenue is right here. Again, the main deficiencies are that the signal is outdated. Even we have crosswalks and the push buttons, but they are just very old. They need to be upgraded to the new standard. Another issue is the parking garage right here on the southwest corner. This entrance supposed to be entrance only, but we were told that there are drivers coming out from here, and then they create a danger for pedestrians on the sidewalk. Okay, if we go to the countermeasures, we propose to, number 1, to install new traffic signal for the intersection. That will include new crosswalks, new ADA ramps, all new push buttons, all new signal heads, a new controller, and everything. And we propose to upgrade all the crosswalks. And on the north leg, we propose to do a curb extension by the library so that the pedestrian has more space and have more space on the corner and less crossing distance to cross Pennsylvania and cross Hickory Avenue. For the garage, parking garage, maybe have some internal signage or marking to tell people this is exit only. Please try not to use this exit onto Pennsylvania. Next one, B6, is Lee Street and Hickory is right here. This one, I think we just gone through the recently curb extension and the improvements is working pretty well, but still there are some things can be done. Let's move to the countermeasure. So right here, we're proposing to consider to expand this corner right here by the credit union to shorten the crossing distance. Because we know there is a drainage unit right there, so this could be done, and also there will be a bus turning here. So this could be done as a mountable curb, so large vehicles can still make this right turn. And this sign here for the credit union, we need to propose to relocate this sign, because this sign is blocking the side distance of drivers making this right turn from Lee to Hickory.
Everybody knows that
one? In front of the church, we were proposing to install this lane line, because right now it's wide open, like about 21 feet of open space. So some drivers, they use this as a 2-lane road, but it's not, it's a 1 lane. So we need to install this lane to discourage people. They need to let them know they can only drive in this lane. There's only 1 lane here. Our next one, B7, is Lee and Main Street, right here by the elementary school. So one block from here. The main issues here, including number 1, is the crosswalks. So we have a crosswalk on Lee, on east side, west side, and across Main in the middle. The problem here is that when pedestrians, especially the parents and their kids, cross in the middle, the traffic on Lee Street, they're trying to make either a right turn or zigzag turn, continue on Lee. They have to look to their left to watch the oncoming traffic from Main, but that makes them difficult to also to see the pedestrians in the crosswalk. That's a very dangerous situation. And also for traffic coming down from Main, because there's a curve here with all the trees and parked vehicles, they cannot really see clearly the crosswalks here and there. Especially there are 3 parking spaces right here, including I think 2 here on this, right here, and 1 on this side. They're exactly right. They're blocking the sign line. If I go to the countermeasures. Okay, so we have quite some things going on here. Number one, we propose to remove the parking spaces, 1 on the east side, right here, and 2 on the west side, right here. So that will remove the obstacle in the driver's side line for them to see from Main to see those crosswalks. And also adding more school warning signs to drivers, and they know they can see and know that there are school children and parents crossing the street ahead. And also in the future, we propose a signal here, traffic signal here, to control all traffic movements and all the pedestrians to make sure to reduce the conflicts between the pedestrian and the traffic. Additionally, on the West Lee Street, we noticed that there is the marking are faded. So we propose new marking to delineate all the parking spaces and the travel lane. And also trim trees and to increase the visibility of the pedestrians and in the crosswalk. Okay.
Question on that. So you said you were
Sure.
going to put, did I hear you correct? You were going to put a light, a traffic light at Lee and Main?
And Main,
That was the
yes.
proposal.
This is recommendation that this will require a traffic study to see if the traffic signal is warranted at this location or
Okay.
not. So this had to be done with the SHA. So they will conduct this traffic warrant study. Last one is the McPhail Road and South Main.
I think you
This
skipped one.
this one here, you zoom in.
I think you still have Gordon. I think you might have skipped that,
Oh, did I pass? Okay, sure.
because that's the one that's going to be looked at.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
In a
somehow
couple
I
weeks.
missed this slide. Okay, yeah. It's Gordon and Main and Bond. That's the entrance to the town from the, like the north side or west side. Okay, right here, the deficiencies are showing like so. Number one, of course, there's the crosswalks are outdated. And then number 2 is this, there's only one ramp on this in this corner, but it doesn't align with this crosswalk properly, so we need to install new new ramp to align with this new crosswalk. And also the other deficiencies, including there are 2 lanes coming from Main, and this left lane is a shared left and through lane, and also can also turn on to Gordon. So this creates a lot of confusion for drivers and also create a dangerous situation for pedestrians in the crosswalk.
There's also a number
Mm.
of children that use
Exactly.
this intersection too.
Right. So we saw that a group of children riding bicycles to school, to elementary school, using this crosswalk. I think they waited there for about 5 minutes, and no drivers would yield to them. So it's really crazy.
And there were three.
Right here, so we have photo right here. See this? The
This
kids.
intersection, along with the one at Kenmore, received the most comments from the public.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the countermeasures.
There is also a study that is with the Smart Growth America for that intersection. And we will be, I believe, progressing with a demonstration project at some point in the near future.
There'll be a public meeting on the 20th and 21st, if you're really ambitious and you want to go to both days. And that'll be in the community room here in Town Hall. Yes, this month.
And we brought in state highway officials, and it was our understanding that this was one of the intersections out of all three municipalities that they felt would have been a good candidate for a demonstration project. So I think Kevin took that opportunity to work with.
Yeah, there are 3 intersections in the state of Maryland that are going to be studied. One in Hagerstown, one in Howard County, and one here.
Yep. Okay, it's kind of matters. Of course, we will propose to upgrade all the crosswalks to be high visibility kind of style. All these. And then there's one thing. We look at the traffic volumes on Main Street, and we feel that one lane is sufficient for all the traffic volume on Main Street. So we propose to install curb extension here to let only one lane continue on Main goes through, and the left lane will become left only lane can go to Gordon or make a U-turn here to back to Bond. And then we also look at the potential runabout in the longer term. So first of all, this is runabout outer radius to show how big the runabout would be for a one-lane runabout. But the constraint here is that there's a building here, and also the main constraint here, there are a lot of overhead power lines and wood posts. There will be a lot of utility relocation if you want to do runabouts. Yeah.
But this gives you an opportunity to start considering if this is a long-term effort and plan accordingly for grant applications, matching, capital improvement funds. So again, we're hoping that we positioned you with, mid to long-term goals so that you can start thinking forward on how to approach kind of your ultimate goals.
In looking at this one, I had a concern about taking Main Street down to one lane there. There's a large volume of traffic that comes out of town or through town, either going down 924, continuing straight, or turning, right onto Broadway and continuing out Route 1. Narrowing it down to one lane, be interesting to, I don't have the numbers, but it seems like, you go there rush hour, 4 or 5 o'clock, it's a steady stream of 2-lane cars, 2 lanes coming down Main Street. So when we do that to one lane, it's a merge. That's going to cause more backups from 2 lanes to 1 lane. So it's like how much traffic is really turning left on the Gordon, and we're basically leaving 1 lane down Main Street just to turn left on the Gordon. You can think of it that way. That's just my initial thoughts about this.
Yeah, this is something that the EXP will have to react to as far as the traffic. They've done the traffic studies. I know when I go down there and I'm heading home, there's 1 lane. Now, it backs up, though.
There's 1 lane.
At Broadway, it's 1 lane going through.
Correct, but I'm saying, because a lot of traffic will split there. Some will go straight down 924, some will go to the right, because they want to go down.
Right.
They
That
wanna go
lane
down
doesn't
Conowingo
disappear.
Road to get out of town.
That lane still is there.
Right,
So-
but you're narrowing 2 lanes of Main Street. When you look down that street, there's 2 lanes of traffic coming down, and now you're going to cut it to 1, and they're going to have to merge into 1 lane to get past Gordon Street.
Yeah, I think as
all.
I do that, it already does that now. It's already 1 lane. People are jockeying to go straight on 920 or on Main Street to go straight.
I think
People aren't.
the question is how quickly does that happen? How much room on the road do you give for drivers to make
Right.
that?
That is the question.
Yeah.
When do you narrow it down, and how is it done? And that's yet to be answered.
Okay?
Any further questions from the board?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, well,
All right, last one is the McPhail Road and South Main Street. So, let's see, here deficiencies including existing sidewalk or crosswalks are outdated, and then the lane drop is missing marking and signage. The lane drop, it happens after the signal if you were traveling southbound on Main. So right here is a lane drop here, but there's no signing or marking tell you there's a lane drop. So that could be a problem for some drivers who are not familiar with the area. Maybe to on to the countermeasures. All right, so for this location, we are proposing to, let me see, to upgrade, because there are schools on the west side, so we propose to install new and opposite standard school crossing signs on those corners. And also, we noticed that there has been some crashes at the intersection. If I show the crash data on the previous page. So there have been some rear end crashes and angle crashes at the intersections. That means there could be something to do with the yellow clearance and the all red clearance time. So we would propose to evaluate and check the current signal timing to see if any problem with the clearance intervals, to increase them to avoid potential future rear end or left turn or right angle crashes. And also there is missing sidewalk on the southwest corner of the intersection right here. That could be midterm because it's pretty long. It's a half-mile of sidewalk to connect from this intersection down to the existing sidewalk at the Crafton Road. And also on the west leg of the intersection, there are missing sidewalks on both sides. Mainly on the southwest corner of the intersection. So we propose to install sidewalks for about 240 feet. And also on east leg and the north leg, we propose to install new sidewalks. Even though there's a steep slope here, but based on the county bike and paid plan, there are planned sidewalk in this area. So I think that's all. In the longer term, we propose to consider install bike lanes at this intersection, also to install proposed shared use paths, because based on the county bike paid master plan on the south leg and the west leg, like so. So I think that's all for the intersections. Yeah.
From what I'm hearing is there's concerns at Linwood and how Linwood interacts with 924, and also on Main Street where it converges with Gordon. If that's something, what we may want to do, at least for the Gordon, is to kind of transfer that discussion to the meeting on the 20th. That has a walkthrough, but the walkthrough is between 1 and 3. It was probably a time where certainly I don't mind if any of the commissioners want to walk down there at rush hour to see how that traffic behaves and whether or not there is an issue with bringing that down to one lane, an intersection earlier. So does that sound accurate as far as what your concerns are?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my concerns. I mean, I just have I don't know what that traffic is. I just know a couple times I go through there at rush hour and I see it's all backed up. I mean, it's not backed up. It's 2 lanes of traffic coming down, and it's car to car, bumper to bumper, car to car. It's a large volume of traffic.
Well, and
That's just my observation. It's not scientific. I don't have any numbers or just,
these intersections, these two intersections floated to the top very quickly at the public meeting.
Yeah.
And that's obvious why they did. So that's something that certainly will probably warrant additional study beyond this. But I just
Okay.
want to make sure that any changes that we have to make to this plan can be done based on your comments.
Okay. The other question I had too was another merge. I think it was on the first one, which was the courthouse on Bond Street. I think you proposed there that in front of the state office building, we'd be going from 3 lanes to 2. Is that,
Yeah.
Yep.
okay? And-
Yes.
And again, that's just, merging is, people don't know how to merge. It's in my opinion. It's, it's not a very efficient process for a lot of people. So I was just, when we do merges, that's just a
I think it's,
concern to look at. You know what I mean? When you're merging lanes, they never seem to go smooth.
I think it's likely that this, right now, when you go down Bond Street, it's 1 lane that goes to 2 lanes at Gordon, and then it
And then
goes
goes to
3
3
lanes at Lee.
Right about Lee,
And
and 2 lanes
I think
at
it's
22.
likely that you won't have to merge if you just keep it 2 lanes. Really, one of the things that folks need to remember, traffic congestion's not caused by the number of lanes, it's caused by intersections. It's caused by stoplights. And those are now, all of these are major changes that will require additional study, but, yeah.
Okay.
So that, I don't think there would be an issue with merging, but that is something that, when you take something from 3 to 2, it's definitely it's a change.
Yeah. So, okay.
My observation on Commissioner Chismar is that there's nothing perfect in the world. And what we're doing here is what I can see what the proposal is in order to make our downtown pedestrian safe, and we've got all this public, places and the courthouse, et cetera, and the drive to, continue to attract people here to have a pedestrian-friendly walking environment from a business and commercial standpoint, as well as residential, that you got to give somewhere. And from these proposals, the sense I'm getting is that, yes, for the drivers at times coming through town, they're going to have to slow down. They're going to have to do something different. And the gain is what that adds to the pedestrian flow in Bel Air. And so I don't think that both can potentially be, achieved. I get your point. I clearly was having the same thoughts about, okay, that's going to be a bump out here or a bump out there. It's certainly, a tough challenge, but I can see the point of making the drivers, know, okay, now you're entering downtown Bel Air. You're going to have to slow down, get used to where the merges are. And if there's going to be, a fender bender on a merge, that certainly is a different degree of bodily harm, in my experience, to somebody getting hit as a pedestrian. So it's weighing that factor. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think Mr. Smaller brought up a good point about, well, maybe we make it 2 lanes. Why expand it to 3 and then narrow it back down to 2?
Right.
Okay, why not keep it 2? Okay, and that's that's a viable alternative. I mean, that sounds better to me than spread out to 3, then come back down to 2.
Well, and a good example of that is
Yeah.
Bolton. Bolton goes from 1 to 2 to 1. And that hopefully will get solved, but I agree, you don't want to keep switching things around, it confuses people.
Right.
But I do want to make sure that before they produce the final version of this, that you as a commission are happy with it, and if there's changes that need to be made, we'll make those.
Okay. Now, I'm just curious, different signages and things and the flashing lights and whatever. I was out of town, and at this one town, they had, for pedestrian crossings, they had, the lights and whatever. But on the signs where it had pedestrian crossing, showing the people going across on either side of it, they had a vertical bar of flashing lights. And I thought that was, and they flashed very quickly as opposed to like, I think a lot of what we have are like stoplight lights, that go. And those grabbed a lot more attention to me than just kind of the flashing lights that we had around here. So I don't know if there's other options for how you have flashing lights, the style of the flashing light that you installed.
That one, the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RFBs. You need to search the.
It was, you just had the square crosswalk sign or whatever they had on either side. They had a vertical bar, one here on both sides that would flash kind of rapidly. And it just got your, Florida, along one of the beach towns. And, right, and,
This, right?
Beach towns, I find are much more active about warning
Pedestrian.
people about pedestrians.
yeah,
And I think, for many reasons, but
right.
I think we definitely need help with our crosswalks with
Mhm.
signage and going down Main Street all the time. I'm stopping at a crosswalk and letting people walk with there's no sign, with
Right.
no light. And we definitely can do
Right.
better with that.
One of the things that I think it's Dewey Beach does is they have lights that simulate a police car. And it works really well.
Yeah. So, right. That's all. I think the signage is good. I think and the flashing lights are good. I just think there are different types of lights that may draw more attention to
Yeah, there are
drivers.
different options. For example, this is the RFB rectangular flashing beacon, the rapid flashing beacons, but they have a certain threshold to have a certain number of crossing pedestrians during certain hours, and then this can be installed. If the pedestrian volume is too low, it's not warranted.
Mhm.
So.
But
Yeah.
they're also expanding the trail usage, so with that, it may warrant.
It may, yes.
Yeah, when the
Right.
trail opens up in about a year, you're going to see a change in the number of pedestrians.
Okay. Right, thank you.
So I'd like to just conclude, thank you, Bo. He's been doing a lot of work for us, as you can see, on the traffic analysis and the recommendations, working with our team. But again, you will get a copy of the report. And I do, there's other sections, but one of the important sections, Section 7, at the end, talks about prioritization. So although we listed, this was a question we were asked last night in Aberdeen, although we have short, mid, and long-term, and there are numbers like short-term 1 to 10, mid 1 to 5, and long-term 1 or 2, those are not priority. Those we would recommend short-term, the low-hanging fruit. Hopefully someone from Public Works can implement some of those. Midterm, if it's on a state road, I would highly recommend you start conversations with the state now, because if you can show them that there is a traffic signal warrant, they could begin the study now, and then in 4 years, you may be able to have that, installed. Long-term, you need to give thought to, we've given you some very rough order of magnitude costs, but that's something that you would need to put into your capital improvements program. So, and if it's something that can be applied for in phases, if there's a preliminary study, you can apply for a grant, but at least it'll get the ball rolling. And I have found, with about 40 years in the public sector, that the best way is to take these small bites, because if you wait 15 years to put it in a CIP, it will never happen, and your children will never be able to see or walk to school her to feel safe in the community. So with that, please look at section 7. We prioritized it per intersection. We felt that a big part of this is equity. We did an analysis on census tracts. So there's 2 areas in Bel Air that kind of rose to the top. One is McPhail intersection, and the other one is, it had another star, is Kenmore. And they have an equity, extra equity effort and safety for Ellendale, Pennsylvania, at Hickory, Gordon, kind of the next, those are your top intersections. So that's on page 7 too, so take a look at chapter 7. And then of course, please give us your comments as soon as you can get through this wonderful report. And our next meeting is July 1st with Havre de Grace, so I assume that sometime in early July, we hope to wrap this up and have a final copy. And then lastly, there is another opportunity to apply for demonstration grant funding through this bipartisan bill. It's the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. So if suddenly you think that there would be another great demonstration opportunity, you do have one at Kenmore and Gordon, but if there's another one that you think, you could.
Yeah, Main Street and Gordon, yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's another grant submittal that you could use this action plan as your, kind of your foundation for future grants.
One of the things to remember is a demonstration grant is not something that's permanent. It takes cones and striping and whatnot and simulates what might be the solution. But then if we get inundated with complaints and there's problems and, that then, it gets modified. And then the last step is an implementation grant. Implementation grant is the actual change. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's time now.
So, Kevin, has this been emailed to us, or we're going to get it?
It's going to be emailed
Okay.
tomorrow, Pat?
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
just so I know when to look for it. And if
Right.
it's too big, I guess we'll get a link, because
And
sometimes that happens.
One of the things that we wanted to make sure about, we didn't want to give you the final version and say, here you go, and not, so we want to make sure that your input is received and that if there's any changes, modifications, that they are incorporated.
So we have a couple of weeks to travel all the intersections on foot, on bike, in cars, and
Exactly.
take a look at them. All right, thank you so much.
Will the public have any comment on this? Will there be any forum? Like we had at the, you had the thing at.
There was the initial forum.
initial forum,
But
but-
there would not be a public comment on the final version for changes. I mean, if the public makes a
Right.
comment, then we can certainly incorporate that into, say, a supplementary report. But we were not planning to.
Right. Because they discussed the issues with the intersections at the Armory, but we never discussed the solutions with them, that's all.
Right.
And how that, what that will do. So-
Well, and that's part of what will happen on the 20th. A
Okay.
lot of the folks that are being invited to the 20th are some of the stakeholders that will be part of that design effort, such as Bel Air Elementary School, ShopRite, Hartford Mutual, Historic Society. Those folks have skin in the game.
Okay.
And next, we have a presentation from Maryland American Water Company. Welcome.
Good evening. Really quick.
That is terrific. Yes, watch your step. Thank you.
So. All right. Ready? Good evening, Chair Redding. Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Town Administration. It's very poppy. My name is J.W. Walker. I'm a project manager of operations from Maryland and Virginia. I've been with American Water for about 17 years. All 17 of those years in some capacity I've served the town of Bel Air through Maryland American Water, so I'm proud about that. Since 2016, I've been a proud resident of the town of Bel Air. And so thank you all for all the sacrifices you make and everything you do to keep our town a very nice place to live and work. So a few months ago, we were here. We had a similar group of coworkers and myself come present to the town, basically introduce ourselves to the new commissioners. At the end of that presentation, we expressed our interest in purchasing the town's wastewater collection system. So that's what we wanted to come back and talk to you a little bit more tonight. You know, what does that exactly mean? You know, what's that buyer-seller process look like? And sort of what's the time frame on an acquisition of that type? So we thank you for allowing us to come back and present again tonight. So who do we have with us to talk about all this fun stuff? We have Rachel Lancaster, who is our new Director of Business Development. We have Jeff Barton, who is the current operations manager for the town of Bel Air. Jeff's been here 30 years, all 30 years. He's been here. He's been in the town of Bel Air. Nobody knows the town water system like Jeff Barton. We're lucky to have him. We also have Simon Scarlett, our senior manager of operations for Maryland and Northern Virginia. And last but not least, we have our president of Maryland and Virginia, Mr. Barry Suits. So, just a brief recap of American Water's footprint. So we're the largest and most geographically diverse publicly traded water and wastewater service provider in the United States. Daily, we treat and distribute about 1 billion gallons of water. We have 6,500 talented professionals that we have access to, their expertise. We own and operate 745 water and wastewater plants throughout the country. And we have just under 57,000 miles of water distribution and wastewater service across the country. So, the agenda for us. We'd like to show you a quick video. We'd like to talk about why solutions, what those solutions and benefits would be for the town of Bel Air, what's the path forward, and the next steps to purchasing the water and wastewater, possibly purchasing the wastewater system for the town of Bel Air. So quickly wanted to tell you about the town of Waverly. In May of 2022, we purchased the water system for Waverly, Virginia. And when we took over the water system in Waverly, it was in pretty rough shape, you know. The town basically, you know, they didn't have the capital resources, they didn't have the expertise to get the system up and running where it needed to be to deliver the water service that those citizens deserved. So we went into negotiations with them, and we closed that deal in May of 2022. 1 year after we purchased Waverly, we went back to shoot a video to sort of demonstrate the positive impact that that purchase or that sale impacted Waverly and the community. So if it's okay, I'd like to share that video with you. Let's see if it works. It's all right. I have a backup.
To live in Waverly is interesting because it is really one of those small towns where everybody knows everything about each other. I know who the postmaster is. I know the people who own every single restaurant or any little, convenience store. For that reason, you get to know people in your community, where in this day and time, you live in a bigger city, you might not even know who your neighbor is.
I grew up here in Waverly. I was born in the hospital in Petersburg. My parents lived here in town, and Waverly was kind of an idyllic little southern town, like many others. The downtown was very, energetic might be the right word. Every one of the stores down there was bustling. It was a neat little place to grow up. Our water system is very old. Most of it was put in the 1930s. Waverly is no different than any other town in that we rarely had enough money to make the upgrades and maintenance fixes that needed to be made.
We really thought we could get a grant, get a loan, fix the system, but we knew that was going to be $10, $15 million. And then once we got that money, how were we actually going to execute that plan? It never occurred to us that we were going to get lucky enough to have somebody like Virginia American Water actually offer us money for the system.
When Virginia American Water first approached us, I began to think, this is something we ought to at least look at.
The mission of American Water really boils down to providing our customers clean, reliable, safe water and wastewater service at a reasonable cost. Water and wastewater service is what we do. It's all we do. We're focused on it. Communities, regardless of their size, benefit from the scale and scope of our company and the resources that brings to bear, whether it's monetary, financing for capital projects to provide service, whether it's technology that we need to provide that service, people and experts, and all the things that go with aggregating the millions of customers that American Water has, but providing that same service to a customer base the size of Waverly or the size of Alexandria, same service.
The people at Virginia American Water has been nothing but positive. They have made amazing changes in the few short months that they've owned our system.
One of our first initiative is, to try to identify all the leaks, that do exist out in the town of Waverly's water system. I think to date we fixed about 78, maybe 80 leaks, somewhere around there.
They not only are a good partner with the water system, they're just a good partner with the town of Waverly. They participate in the Christmas parade and they have a float. We had a fall festival, they showed up. They show up 100%. They actually won the first prize in the Christmas parade this year. Their float was just amazing.
One of the first questions and concerns I usually hear from the community or even employees is, we like our employees. Our employees live here. We don't want to see anybody lose a job. And with Virginia American Water, that's one of the first commitments we make. We provide jobs for all existing employees within a community.
I love mostly about my job is helping the community. My job is very important because the customers have questions. They need someone to rely on to ask questions. They have concerns about water bills. They have concerns about water usage. So my job is very critical to actually the town and for the customer to ensure whatever question needed is answered fully.
We serve a community, we serve the industries, and it's very important that we provide safe drinking water. I was born not far from here. It makes me feel real good. I had some family members read an article and they said, we're really proud of you. You didn't forget us. You came back home. So this is still home.
It's interesting because now that we've sold our water, we are getting calls from other towns. I actually had a call from a town yesterday, and they want to implement a program to take down dilapidated houses, which the town has been doing for the last couple of years, but they don't have money to fund that. So I asked them, have you thought about selling your water system? Because they also have a very dilapidated system. My vision for this town is it has to be a destination town. We're taking the money that we've gotten from Virginia American Water, we're investing a lot of that money, and it will be put aside, but we're looking to use that interest each year to really make the downtown a place that people want to come from other locations.
It's been a wonderful experience, and I would like to encourage other towns to look at this, because I wasn't kidding. I really believe this is the best thing we've ever done for Waverly.
All right. I knew that was going to happen. So anyway, so thank you for watching that video. That video makes me very proud of what our company does for towns and communities. So up next, we have Simon Scarlett. He's going to come up. He's going to talk to you a little bit about the benefits of a wastewater partnership with Maryland American Water. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and it's good to be here again this evening. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes just to kind of talk a little bit about what this would look like for the community. Normally I spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes talking about how we like to become part of the community, we like to get involved, but I truly feel like the commissioners probably know that already because of the impact that we've had and time that we spent with the community. But what I will say is that we do invest. You know, we invest in our staff. We make sure that our staff are trained. We put them through licensing programs. We have opportunities to advance. JW is a perfect example of someone that came through the program, got their degree and was promoted. We actually recently promoted a plant operator down here to be one of our supervisors in Virginia just this week. So there's lots of opportunity for staffs that come over to us. Operations, we want to make sure that we run professionally and efficiently. We have resiliency and redundancy in our system. I think that we've seen that with the empowerment here. That all boils down to quality, making sure that you have quality water, wastewater services, clean, safe, reliable drinking and wastewater service. And all of that is underpinned by really the most important part of this and why we do it, and that's the customer. That's the people in this room and the communities that we serve, making sure that we're investing in that for them and future generations. When we talk about acquisition of systems, generally I like to talk in 3 pillars. This is you know, a lot of what folks generally like to talk about. Talk about financial gain. So there is the initial acquisition price. And the way that we do that is through a piece of legislation called fair market value, okay, which essentially the town would get appraisal. Goodness me, the town would get an appraisal. Maryland American Water would get an appraisal, and then we would meet in the middle there to come up with that fair market value. Previously, it used to be the original cost of the system minus depreciation. So now it's a much better playing field for a community to sell their water or their wastewater assets. Elimination of debt. So you would get a chunk of money for the acquisition price. That can be used for any number of things, but primarily what we see is a reduction in town debt, which can be a huge boon for the community. We also hear comments about, well, you know, potentially there's a revenue stream for the town that is going to go away, and that is true in some cases, but there is also additional revenue streams that come with the sale of a water wastewater asset. Things like property taxes, for example, are a perfect element of that. Additional resource of revenue, franchise fees, the permitting costs that you would get through that process. So there are additional streams of revenue that you would be able to see. Economic development, really important that we're not only looking after the community that you have right now, but also working with you very collaboratively to find out what's coming down the pike. You know, what new investments do you have, the growth that you're having, making sure that we are all prepared both on the water and the wastewater side to support the new residents. And of course, additional jobs out of that make sense, both on the Maryland American Water side, but also contractors and businesses in the area. Infrastructure, you know, we invest heavily in the systems that we own. We want to make sure that we have resiliency and redundancy in absolutely everything that we do. We will invest in cutting-edge technology to make sure that, again, we're running as efficiently as possible, and we're always thinking ahead. So we have a 5-year capital plan, but I think our engineers go upwards of 20 years in that, you know, they're planning for the future investments that we need. You know, so what do communities do with the funds that they receive? You know, this is really high level, some of the things that they do, and we can go into this in more detail in another forum. Retiring of municipal debt, we've covered that. Some more interesting ones about funding pension obligations, reducing taxes, we've seen that, or in some cases mitigating tax increases that they had planned. Funding fire, police and other important municipal services. You know, we just had a fantastic presentation about investments that maybe the town needs to make regarding safety of you know, people out in the street. Here's an example of what, you know, those funds could be used for to invest in that type of capital project. Renovating or building new municipal buildings, you know, removing abandoned structures and funding local development projects. So there's lots and lots of things that that you can use that money for, in addition to the additional revenue streams that you would have throughout that. I'm just going to quickly hand over to Jeff Barton just to cover off on the next slide, but thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, everyone. Okay. Just want to talk about the opportunities that an acquisition would look like for the town of Bel Air. So, town sewer collection operations would obviously be owned by Maryland American Water. As you can see in the example with Waverly, there's a lot of opportunities that come with that. Reduction in the town's administration functions tied to management and billing. You probably have an administrative person who does all the admin work here. I think I work with them on a regular basis, sometimes, going through those sewer accounts. Some of the other things, right now, we go out and get those readings on the water usage. We provide those readings back to the town of Bel Air to bill the sewer. So that would lead into single bill for customers. With the single billing for the customers, delinquent accounts, I think currently you have a structure that maybe takes on tax sale over a 5 or 6 month period, I believe, for delinquents. If it's tied to the water, we have that opportunity to turn the water off and leverage that. Maryland American access to corporate experts, we talked about that in a lot of the examples that we showed here. Capital investment, safety, IT. We have an IT department. We have security department. We're able to leverage this. As you can see back here, we have Simon Scarlett, Barry Suits. They're from Virginia, but we're able to leverage that in the small business that we run here within the town of Bel Air. Opportunity to use the purchase price and the funds to reduce your debt and invest in additional priority projects. I think we just saw one here where if you're not spending that money to repair sewer mains and all the other costs associated with that, there's opportunities that could arise from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Good evening. So I think my colleagues have done a great job up to this point of giving you a picture of why we think an acquisition of the wastewater of Bel Air would be a great idea for both of us. Hopefully our presentation prior to this and then also today has painted a really good picture of what that partnership could look like. And we think there's definitely a lot of potential for that partnership going forward. What I'd like to take a few minutes and explain now would be the how behind that. So again, we talked about that why, but what does that process moving forward look like? So the path forward, how it works, and I'll turn your attention also to the paper you all were given here, but really a high level of what that looks like. The first step is what we call due diligence, and that's all of that light blue shaded area. In a nutshell, what that is really just information sharing. So it's a lot of checklist items, which that checklist is also actually included in the folders that you all were given, just to give you an idea of what information we'd be looking to share back and forth. We do a lot of site visits. Our engineering team and financial team would work on a lot of capital improvement plans, operations plans, work on some financial modeling and things like that. So throughout that process, back and forth, again, a lot of that is sharing, but the main thing to that is there's no obligation going through that process with us. There's no commitment. Really, it's just entering in a partnership, truly, to just share that information back and forth. That helps us get a better scope and a picture of the overall wastewater system so that we can get to the point to give you guys an actual tangible offer to put on the table for you to review. So a few things to just point out with that on that due diligence process. Again, we work very closely with your teams here. So it's not just handing you a checklist and we walk away. It's very much a partnership in that sharing information and working together to get those documents together. And then again, as I mentioned, the city's under no obligation to accept any offer. Really, this is just going together to work together to share information so that we can put that offer on the table and give you something to look at. And then again, the costs associated with the due diligence, those would all be covered on our end. So there would be no cost to the town to work with us on a due diligence process. Now, the darker blue, that's where that commitment piece would come into play. So just giving you, again, a very high-level piece of what that would look like. Once we get to that tangible physical offer that we would get to after due diligence, then we would go into like a negotiation period where we'd actually have what we call an APA, which is an asset purchase agreement. And that's something we work very closely with the commission on, just working out details. Whatever we do, any acquisition, whether it's Virginia, Maryland, any state we work on, it has to make sense for you all and it has to make sense for us. It has to be a win-win on both sides. So that's part of that negotiation process, is just making sure that you guys are happy at the end of it as well as we are, and everyone kind of wins at the end. That's the goal. And then, of course, as you know, we are very regulated. So there's PSC approval process as part of that. And then eventually at the end, our goal is to get to closing and then what we call customer integration. So that's, again, just that high-level picture of what that process would look like. So that's a lot of steps, and while it seems like that would be pretty quick to go through, we wanted to give you a picture of what that timeline looks like. What you'll see on the screen is actually a recent acquisition we're going through, also in Maryland with the town of Severn. And to give you just a timeline, now again, they're a little different. That was a private utility. But initial meetings started in 2021 with them. So if this is something that does pique your interest and you just want to start that exploratory period with us, we always say just to go ahead and look at that due diligence piece, because as we work through that, you'll see that it takes some time to work together, gathering that information, working on those site visits to even get to that formal written offer piece. And then from there, again, all the approvals and then the process that needs to go through to get to that closing piece, which we're hoping to get that approval into this year, and then looking at that integration of our customers going into early 25. So as Simon mentioned, and the legislation piece on fair market value is also in your folder for you all to review, but just a few pieces we wanted to point out on this. So selling, again, it's completely voluntary. So going through that due diligence process with us, having this conversation does not obligate you all to actually sell. It's just something for you to consider to make sure, again, it makes sense on both ends. Providing customer protections. So we can't control our rates on our own. We don't come in and say, you know, we want to raise rates $10. Those are definitely regulated by the Maryland PSC. So that's going through what we call a rate case for review, and there's definitely a process to that. Rate proceedings provide opportunities. Also, public input is a big piece of that as well. And then our third-party appraisals, also what Simon mentioned as well. So there's a part of that valuation process where you guys would have someone go through that appraisal process on your end, and we would do the same, so that at the end of it, we come with a fair valuation for all. And again, all that information is in your folder as well. And the last piece we wanted to talk to is really our ask this evening while we're here. So that's that due diligence piece. You'll find in your folder the actual letter of intent. And these are just a few of the stages that are broken out in that letter. It talks about the document sharing, which we mentioned going through here, the process overall, what that looks like. The stage of the evaluation piece, again, that takes approximately 2 to 3 months. And then to get to that offer presentation, where we would be able to give you a formal written offer in the form of an asset purchase agreement. We can try to move through that as quickly as possible, but typically we're looking at about 4 to 6 months range just to go through that due diligence process together to give you that offer to consider overall. And then again, on the right side there, you'll see that due diligence checklist that's specific to wastewater, and those would be things that we would be working to share with you guys. And the last few bullet points, again, just to kind of hit home, there is no obligation to accept the offer once we go through the due diligence process. If we get that and it doesn't make sense on either end, you're under no obligation to accept that. The cost is borne by Maryland American Water. Our information is confidential, so anything we do in the sharing process is strictly used for this process only. And then there's usually no disruption to current operations, so we try to make that as smooth as possible as we're gathering that information. So we appreciate the consideration. I'm going to I'm going to bring up our president, Barry Suits, as well as the rest of my team for some Q&A. If you all have any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer. Thank you. You can, or I can.
I
through the, yeah, they're loud enough too, we don't know.
We would appreciate it because we are live streaming this, and then it is recorded for people to look at who didn't attend the meeting but might want to see what went on. And I do have one question. The town that you purchased the water system from, Waverly, Virginia, you did not purchase their wastewater system, or did they not have one?
I'm going to try to. I'm going to try to not have the feedback, but we did not purchase their wastewater system. We are actually talking to them about that. It's a little more complicated. It's part of an authority that extends beyond the town limits. So in that situation, they don't have full ownership of their whole wastewater system. That being said, about a month ago, we purchased the water and wastewater system of Cape Charles, Virginia, which is a community of about a third to a half the size of Bel Air. And so we just purchased them and closed on that and have integrated them into our system in Virginia. So that's the most recent wastewater system we bought. About 10 years ago, we bought a system in Dale City, Virginia, which is the Woodbridge area, just south of our Alexandria operations. It's a fairly large system. It's got 2 5-million-gallon-a-day plants, about 20,000, 22,000 connections, so about 4 times the size of Bel Air. And we've been running that wastewater system in Dale City for 10 years now. So I don't know if that helps, but
That was going to be my next question. Is where are a couple that you have purchased a wastewater system? So thank you for answering that in advance and anticipating that. Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, no, that was similar to mine. I was just wondering of how many wastewater systems do you own?
That's a number I should know across American Water, and it's a number I don't know because it's changing pretty quickly. Predominantly, 20 years ago, American Water was mostly a water company, right? What we found in the last decade or so, maybe a little longer than that, I'm getting older, and Pennsylvania has done the most. So just north of you has been the most notable in terms of growth of wastewater. I came from Illinois American Water, where we had about 25,000 customers that were wastewater systems, and we had about 300,000 that were water. That gives you a sense that it was about 10% wastewater, 90% water. What we've seen, though, on the acquisition front is a couple things. Number one, in many cases, wastewater, because you don't drink it or it's a little bit more, it's had less emphasis or priority, so there's been less investment, and communities have gotten farther behind. And so they find themselves sometimes with wastewater now that they have more stringent standards on effluent into the environment, which is ever more notable here with Chesapeake Bay and that watershed, that they end up being in a worse spot. And it's also, and I shouldn't even share this in a way, but it's a little less emotional for people. A lot of people in town, the name on the water tower that somebody, drilled this well or did this, but not so many people are talking about the wastewater plant in the same way they do the water tower or the well. So there's a lot of times a little bit less emotion around the sale of wastewater, but we're seeing that grow. I would think at American Water, and this is the number I don't know because it has been changing, we are around 10 to 15% wastewater customers. So we have 3.5 million customers, about 300 to 400,000 connections probably are wastewater, which is a pretty big number, and we serve probably more than 1 million people wastewater service. So we have a good breadth of experience on the wastewater side, and we do in Virginia. And we've actually looked into that a little bit because there's a good reciprocity between Virginia operator licenses and Maryland, and so our same leadership team that runs the Virginia American Water Company, I'm president of that as well as for Maryland, operates as Jeff's resources and JW's resources. So we would have people that could come down and get their licenses in Maryland, have knowledge of wastewater, and become operators in Maryland fairly quickly, which would then give people like Jeff and his team somebody to work under to get their licenses. So that can happen pretty quickly. And I don't know exactly what this is all very preliminary, very early. I don't know what the employee situation is. I know it on the slides there, or the video, it said we offer all the employees in
all the people in the community a job. It's not quite possible, but we mean the people that work for the utility.
That's what I assumed you
The
meant.
whole town.
Right.
Although we appreciate the bigger
I
offer.
thought, we gotta watch, our lawyers should have caught that for us, but, you know, but we offer the people that work for the utility in the town a job first, but then we also have people that, you know, should there not be any or not enough, we have people that can fill in. I don't know if that helps a little bit, but,
Have you approached Harford County about their wastewater?
we have not. Actually, this came up, I think, through some joint conversation here in Bel Air. Maybe Simon could, and this is publicly streamed, so my bosses, they probably want me to. But, you know, at the end of the day, what we
Right.
really are is a water and wastewater provider. That's what we do. I was sitting here the whole time looking at this traffic study, and I'm a civil engineer by training. I thought, oh my God, if I had to deal with that, and water, and wastewater, and police, and fire, and all the other things, you know, that a community has to deal with. And then I saw our slide, and one of my comments was, you know, what I love about our job is it's water and wastewater is what we do. It's all we do. That we're focused on it, just like somebody else is focused on traffic or police and fire. We have not talked to Harford County about it, but I think the conversation here came out of some discussions about just our normal discussions of providing water service within Bel Air, and, you know, and somebody mentioned, well, I didn't know you guys did wastewater. So I said, well, no, we actually do. So we haven't yet, no.
Right, I mean, Mr. Klein, I mean, we just have the pumps and the pipes. We don't do treatment, correct?
Right. And
Harford County does the
that's
treatment.
what something I was going to ask Mr. Suits is, have they been in contact with Harford County asking if they would do an agreement with Maryland American to accept the sewage and treat it for you?
So we haven't, because we don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse with Bel
Sure.
Air.
Right.
But what I would
Understood.
think would be the answer is yes. And the reason I say that, number one, is we already have an agreement with them to buy water.
Right.
So we can actually purchase water about half of what we need or so on a daily basis from Harford County, a little bit more on an emergency basis. So we already have an agreement with the county on the water side, which would kind of by precedence suggest that they would continue through a purchase water agreement should we buy the sewer side. And that's very common where we buy collection-only systems. In Illinois, when I was vice president of operations there, about half of them, we had purchase water contracts with, you know, a local larger authority or kind of regional wastewater plant that had individual towns that sent their sewage to that plant. So a purchase water or purchase wastewater treatment are very common agreements for us in our business.
And just another question in that realm, I was just wondering if you have considered even constructing your own treatment plant for the town?
I would think that it would be most reasonable for the town and best economically. I mean, we haven't looked at that, but my gut instinct is Harford County folks are pretty reasonable folks. It makes sense to have that, you know, consolidated the way it is. You know, we certainly would be willing to look at something like that, but I think probably in this case, what would make sense is that would make the most sense. Now, that didn't make the most sense right before I got here, some 10 years ago, and went with the water side, right? Because the cost for Harford County to kind of ramp up their water supply were more than what building the impoundment and dealing with our own plant here was. So, you know, but that's a different business. That's the water supply business. Right. We were able to build an impoundment, take water out of winter's run when there's plenty, store it for when we might need it later at a cheaper cost than building a long pipeline to the county, then building an extra plant to expand to make up for the amount that they had to take on from us. And so that wasn't viable then. But I think in this case, just intuitively, it would make sense to stick with them as purchase sewage treatment.
Okay.
Now, that all changes, right?
Yeah, sure.
The thing that I sat back here thinking about a little bit, you know, a lot of the stringent standards we see on the water side, they're just a little behind on the wastewater side. So, you know, and I've talked with some of you, I talked with you about PFAS.
Yeah.
Well, that's a real issue that we're working on in Bel Air here and working through the different alternatives and what might be needed and what might not be needed and where we need it. You know, we're not in a bad shape there at all. And I know I sent you a response.
Sure,
And
and I
a lot of
appreciate that,
data's on
Barry.
our website page, so you can see that. That's going to flow through the wastewater side eventually. None of us know what that looks like, you know, in the industry, not just American Water, but, you know, we're dealing with it on the water delivery side now, but it's eventually going to be an issue because it's collected in these wastewater treatment plants, and then it's a hazardous waste that has to be disposed of. So, you know, that's coming in the years to come on the wastewater side, if that makes sense. Any other questions? I know I'll probably elaborate a little more, but we're glad you invited us here and appreciate the time.
I know you couldn't give me an actual dollar figure, but most of our rate, or a big chunk of it, is made up from what the county charges us that we send to them. How do you calculate rates for wastewater treatment?
Well, the way we calculate it is a cost of service study. And so, we basically analyze all the costs we have that go into the service for the customers. So it's no different. I mean, it's a different business, but it's no different than how we would, go through the process on the water side, right? There's assets that we need, and so they have a cost to them, amortized over the life of the asset through depreciation. So that can be turned into a cost per gallon or a cost per customer based on the type of customer, commercial, industrial, residential, public authority. Then there's, the other costs for variable costs, I'll call them, for power and labor and chemicals. Those vary. Most of the capital costs are pretty fixed once you put them in place. There's some other things that are somewhat fixed, some that aren't, but they're more O&M costs. And we run through all those calculations, and then that's presented in a rate application in front of the PSC, and they have their own experts that look at it and say, we don't agree with some of what you have, and we agree with other things. And in the end, they make a ruling on what the rate would be. So we don't get to make that decision, and that becomes a source of concern sometimes, but that's a public input process. So, anytime we have a rate application, even here in Bel Air on the water side, the community can intervene. You as a community can, customers can, environmental regulators can. Everybody can intervene in that process and enter testimony and evidence. So the other piece of that then is part of those costs. For instance, in Alexandria, we don't treat the water, we buy it from Fairfax County. So that becomes part of the cost of service, right? What we pay Fairfax for that water would be collected from the customers, probably no different than what you do now.
Okay,
Does that make sense, or does that help?
I have another question with regard to the appraisal process. Is purchasing of the equipment sometimes a consideration, or is it most time? For example, our jet trucks and things of that nature, our camera trucks and so forth like that. Is that usually done that way, or are we left to sell those items on our own?
No,
and you bring your stuff in?
That's all subject to the negotiation of the asset purchase agreement, but just as an example, in Cape Charles, we bought all that.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's most common we buy that, we sit down and it's appraised and we negotiate it, but yeah, you wouldn't have to most likely deal with any of those leftover pieces of equipment you no longer need. Frankly, we would want them. We wouldn't have to buy everything new because that would be an extra cost, so.
Yeah,
Does that help?
Yeah. Perfect, yeah.
Any other good questions?
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the time. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the Town Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two items. Really, they're more administrative than anything. First off, so what I'm passing around to you are colorful pictures of the Shamrock Playground, which I think when we see the Lions Club, if we could send them some kudos and some thank yous. They actually went out and painted the playground equipment at Shamrock Park, and as you can see there, it was professionally done and looks really nice. They've done that before, they did it again, and just wanted to bring your attention to it for number one. And then number two, with the 4th of July upcoming, Julia Potler and Dave Anderson have asked me to make the commissioners aware that on the day of the 4th of July with the time capsule, 3 of you have acknowledged coming that particular day to participate. We need an MC, we need a keynote speaker, and we wanted the 3 of you, or the 5 if all 5 have agreed to come, to determine who that would be. Certainly we would really appreciate all the commissioners' attendance that day if possible, but we also know schedules could prohibit that. As you most likely are aware, we did unearth the time capsule, and we will have a good photo array in PowerPoint to show the public what we did. But sadly, a good chunk of what was stored in the time capsule has been destroyed or ruined over the time by weather. There are a number of pieces that are still viable and still displayable, if you will, but it wasn't the pot at the end of the rainbow that we were looking for. So unfortunately, but that said, there's still some things to talk about. There's also the opportunity for people to contribute to the new time capsule. Steve and staff have worked on purchasing a box that we're going to actually store above ground for the next 50 years and keep it sealed and above ground so it's protected. So in 50 years, those people will see stuff from us that we're not able to see from 1974. At least I remember the time capsule, so I recognize it, but not everybody has a benefit. Anyway, back to my original point. So Julia would like to know from all three of you or all five of you who would like to be the keynote, just for a couple of minutes of speaking. And whoever is the keynote, they could either do their own talking points or we would be happy to provide those for you. And then someone to MC the event, because we will have a community band playing and we will have a twirling demonstration by a group of professional twirlers that will add to the festivities. And Mike, I feel like I'm missing something. What am I missing?
No, you got it.
Got it covered?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will do a follow-up email with everyone, but Julie asked me to broach that with you tonight, so you can be thinking as to who might want to do that. And then if you would, since we're really coming down to the wire, if you would coordinate directly with her and just copy me, I would appreciate it. So, and just those two administrative items, that's all I had.
Terrific. So the five of us should let one another know who's going to be there if you already know your schedule, so we know who is. I know I'll be there for sure.
It was you, Mayor Edding, and Mr. Taylor.
There you go. So. I had hoped that I had sent it in my email, so I'm glad that I did send it in my
You
email.
also
that I'd be
volunteered Steve to paint and pick up trash. In case you didn't know, you did. Yeah.
I can do that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, we'll look forward to getting that then.
Comment on Eddie's. Do we know what the destroyed items were? Can they be at least pictured, we don't even know what they look like. or what they were.
David took a number of pictures of what was salvageable. Most everything else, for example, paper products, a lot of them morphed into a pile of
Mush, yeah, paper mache.
The
Got it. Okay.
Casophagus, I think I'm saying that's right, actually has been quite intriguing. There's been more people who have been using the band shell that see that have been grabbing their picture with it than anything. It's actually quite an intriguing piece of a coffin.
Okay.
That's kind of, but no, unfortunately, it was not sealed properly or hermetically sealed, or over time, it just water leaked in, and
Right.
most was damaged.
So we should have just used like a Ziploc bag and.
If they had them back in 1974, I think they had the fold-over flip kind. I don't think
That's
they
what
had
I
that
remember
back
for our lunch baggies
I'm
too.
not sure Tupperware was invented yet.
Oh, Tupperware was definitely invented.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so our tentative agenda for our town meeting on Monday will have the public hearings for the amendment to the town code for the Committee on the Elderly and Needy Citizens, and the resolution regarding the fee schedule. So our unfinished business will also be those two things. So I guess we'll start with the Elderly and Needy Citizens section. Do we have anything
There's
further?
been no amendments to it, so I think the
Okay.
board introduced it, back on the 3rd, or accepted it back on the 3rd. There'll be a public hearing coming up at this town meeting and an opportunity to vote on those changes. And
All
just to refresh your memory, it's primarily a name change.
Change, right.
Yeah.
And
I
then
did
a
add-
change in the
and I- and the
numbers,
number.
so they can
Yeah.
have more members than they
Right.
used to have,
We
because
did
they
a
have a number of
minimum
really
of
great
5 and a
people.
maximum of 9, so they wouldn't be burdened with having only a 9-member board. They could fluctuate. And then we clarified the definition of a quorum, so it would be a majority of the members in attendance.
So I was watching this one from afar, and I wish that I'd been there for that one. So presuming that all boards operate under Robert's Rules of Order, which they should, a quorum is always defined as a majority of members of the body being present. So, one of the things that I just wanted to make sure that we had down was because this is the Board of Commissioners will always have 5 members. It's in the charter. But we can have anywhere from 5 to 9 members of this particular committee. So if there were only 7 seated members of the committee, 4 would still constitute a quorum. They don't need 5 because there's a maximum of 9. It's a majority of however many seats are filled. And that's, that's standard across anyone that uses Roberts. So assuming that we all do, that should be standard. We can keep it in there, certainly, but I did just want to share that, that is enumerated in Roberts.
Thank you very much for the clarification. And just to piggyback on that, I guess I have a question. I did add in language per the board's request, a letter C, a majority of the voting members shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business. I'm thinking that might be general enough to meet your definition, to meet the definition.
Yes, because a voting member is someone who's been seated. So if we were to say, and I wouldn't recommend changing this, if we were to say a majority of the committee, or you might run into a trouble because the committee 9, or because there are 2 open seats, but because you said majority of voting members, that's perfect, you're golden.
Excellent, thank you very much. I have nothing further on Ordinance 827.
Okay. And our other piece of unfinished business will be Resolution 1231-24, the Town of Bel Air fee schedule amendments. And I know we have today an addition, some additional information regarding that. So, Mr. Krantz?
We have quite a few. At the last time when this resolution was received, the commissioners did make an amendment, and we eliminated some language about the Public Information Act. So that'll be addressed sometime in the future. But simultaneously, after it was received, the commissioners, you also asked for additional clarification on some areas in building permits, residential building, dwelling fees. So we got together with Mr. Klein in Public Works and his staff, and we made quite a few changes in the language that I think would provide the clarification that the board was looking for. So in the anticipation of tonight's meeting, I kind of prepared the agenda page that you would see on June 17th. So it included in that is a very lengthy amendment revision. Then you see under the things that would have to be read into the motion to approve this resolution. And where there was some maybe misunderstanding about what the fee was, I think it's very clear. And if you look at, for example, the very first one under commercial, industrial, institutional, under building permits and other related fees, it read before, 9 cents per square foot, comma, minimum 150 DILP review and inspection services plus, 1 penny per square foot, minimum $85, use and occupancy certificate based upon specific use, additional building permits may apply. We just struck through all that language completely and changed it to read as follows. Harford County fee, 9 cents per square foot or $150 minimum. UNO certificate fee, 1 cent per square foot or $125 minimum. And then a caveat, based on specific use, additional building permit review fee may apply. And you'll see that type of rewording throughout the fee schedule where we specifically illustrated Harford County fee and UNO fee. Harford County fee and UNO fee. So I think it improves understanding and provides a much clearer reflection of the actual fee. So I'm very interested in your feedback to see if you agree with that. I know Mr. Klein and his staff put a lot of thought into how it should read, and I appreciate his help.
Yeah, I think it's great job clarifying. I think it's crystal clear.
Now even I could calculate it.
Okay, good. Well, that's excellent. I really appreciate that feedback, and you'll see the lengthy revisions that would have to be read into the minutes at the time the motion to approve would come before you on the 17th. But as long as you don't mind doing that, we can still have a successful resolution pass with a modified fee schedule. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah,
think-
Madam Chair, could I, since we're in the work session here, could I just bring up something that, as I reflected on the fee thing, I just would like to give our residents a break on decks and club basements. I mean, I'm just like, you know, I know we've had this fee, and now this fee is going to be, you know, increased, and I'm just want to see if anybody else on the commission had any feeling about that.
I do tend to agree, particularly when we're dealing with the difference between someone with a lot of capital that's coming in to build a project with a large footprint versus a homeowner who's trying to add a deck. I do think that there's probably a difference there. I understand that there may not be a difference for labor for the town, but certainly there is a difference to the person that we're charging the fee. So I do tend to agree with you, Mr. Rutledge. I'd be very curious to hear from staff about their thoughts on this matter.
Yeah.
But my initial reaction is one of agreement.
So could I be clear on what the fee is? Because I see on page 8, under decks, porches, and balconies and club in a basement, the Harford County fee is 5 cents a square foot or $30 minimum. So the $30 minimum is a county fee. We have to pass it along, so we should be charging it to people. And then, actually, I don't see that the administrative fee survived, because it's stricken out on page 8.
I think the administrative fee was the UNO fee. We just
Okay.
clarified it for the sake of
Okay, so now it's
identifying
the UNO
what
fee is $50.
they're actually purchasing. So instead of the general term admin,
Okay.
is that correct, Steve? Yes. Yeah, thank you.
You know, it's, you know.
I didn't use my calculator to do just a little
I raised
math.
that the last meeting. I thought the $50 was a little, for the UNO fee wasn't commensurate with when you build a whole room or a residential accessory building. It's the same price. You know, relatively, I think it's, like, I agree with you, it's a little high.
Yeah, I
Just
realize
from a
we're,
comparative
we're not,
perspective.
if I take my analysis away from just, okay, recouping what the cost to the town is, I can certainly appreciate that. But then if I put myself in average homeowner's shoes across this town, and I think about what can we do to help encourage some of our homeowners to maybe continue to do a few nice things, like, you know, do that deck or replace that deck or do a club basement. I'm thinking, you know, this might be an area that we should consider, you know, cutting the citizens a break.
Mr. Rutledge, are you saying that you think that we should reduce the UNO charge of $50
For
for a deck?
For deck or club basement. Now, porches and balconies,
What's
I'm
the
fine
difference
with it.
between a
That's
deck and a
different animal.
porch?
But I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about, you know, your just basic deck, you know, the deck thing, and, because people could have decks that just need to be torn down, expanded, rebuilt. They'd have to spend the $50 on the UNO for the new deck, I think,
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, hey, you know, I'd like to have something to encourage our citizens out there. Hey, you know, fix the decks, and if you want to do a club basement, great, but we're not going to charge as much as for a UNO on that we would for a balcony or a porch.
Yeah, I concur with you. I'm just concerned that the time spent by staff preparing the UNO and doing all the paperwork that goes along with it might present a problem where we're losing money for providing a UNO.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the UNO certificate, all that money goes to the town, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the county, for their dollars, comes out and does their inspections or whatever and sends all those 3 reports, I think it is, on a deck
And
to the
that's
town,
that's
and
the
then you will,
0.05% per square foot.
and
yes.
then you will issue the UNO.
Yes.
I mean, the thing about it is you have 4 categories in there. Why, to me, there's a big difference in effort between some of those. Deck seems to be relatively simple. Porches and balconies can be very very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because of footings and roofs and things of that nature. And then club basements are, you know, pretty much studding and drywall and electric. But electric is covered differently, and plumbing is another thing. So, I mean, porches and balconies, that's probably a fair price. I don't know. Decks and club basements, yeah, I don't know. Just seems like a little high, but.
Well,
I
it's
agree with-
really,
I agree
I mean,
with Jim.
the UNO prices look like they're the same across the board.
Yeah.
$50 is our set fee,
Probably
as
takes
like
about the
what
same
it
time to
costs.
prepare
and-
UNO for each one of
Right,
those
because
Oh, it
it's,
does?
it's,
Yeah,
it's strictly the UNO.
Yeah.
Right.
That's,
It's not the county.
it's not the county fee, and the town is not going out and doing any inspections, so it doesn't matter whether it's more complicated, that it's a porch versus a deck. I'm not sure exactly what the difference is. I could,
So what that does is, what that requires is, of course, my clerk going over and reaching out to Harford County and making sure that all the inspections have been completed, then preparing the actual UNO certificate, walking it down to Kevin's office and having Kevin review it and sign it, and then it comes to my office and then I sign it at the end. So that's basically the process.
So this is, the $50 fee is really essentially to cover for the time that is spent for
Putting
staff
it all
preparing
together, yes.
Right, there's no material cost or anything like that, this is just time cost.
Piece
that
of
we're talking
paper and a copy
Yeah.
or two, that's about it.
Yeah.
do we have any idea what Aberdeen, Havre de Grace, or the county charge for the UNO when it's them issuing?
I do not, but I can find that out, I'm sure, easily.
I would really like to know that, because I wouldn't want to be out of line too much one way or the other with the other jurisdictions. I mean, if they're charging $25 in Havre de Grace, I wouldn't want to have our people.
I'd be
charging
happy to
twice.
try to put together Havre de Grace and Aberdeen charges for those UNOs, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe, if they all have the same, I'm assuming they might have a set fee across the board too for UNO issuance. But I'm just curious, and especially since our board's questions were directed to decks, porches, and balconies and club basements, I'm really just curious what the county, Aberdeen, and Havre de Grace charge for their UNOs. Because $50 in today's pricing
Yeah, I'm
is
thinking
not
it's not that much.
that bad, you know, because really for many decks, balconies, and club basements, I was trying to do some calculation based on like what I guess my square footage is, and it would cost me like $80. I just don't think that's terrible for 3 inspections from the county and a UNO from us. And the help that they give you at the
Yeah.
counter when I was talking about, whenever I called them about like, when do I need a permit if I'm putting on a new roof? It's like if it's more than one sheet of plywood, then you need a permit, you know. They know all this stuff, and you get all that when you come to the town for your building permit, even though I know all the plans review and everything is done over in the county office building.
Sure do. I'll try to get that out to you in an email as soon as I can gather the information.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion on our fee schedule? In that case, Mr. Klein, I think the new business is going to be you, ordinance 830-24, amending the code of the Town of Bel Air, Chapter 145, building construction.
Yes, so it's, there's actually 3 ordinances that I'd like to introduce next week for your receipt. And basically.
Let me just read those other 2, and we can handle them all at once, just for the people watching
Sure.
at home. Ordinance 831-24, amending the code of the Town of Bel Air, Chapter 180, electrical standards. Ordinance 832-24, amending the code of the Town of Bel Air, Chapter 353, plumbing and gas fitting standards. And you can, I'm assuming there's been some change in the.
Yeah. So what happens is every several years, the international group that, international code group changes the code, new procedures come up, new ways of building come up. So they change the code every so often. So Harford County, of course, is our person who does the inspections and so forth. And they just recently in March changed from the 2018 International Building Code to the 2021 International Building Code. So when that happens, Hartford County goes and looks through the entire code and makes little amendments relative to Hartford County. What we do is we go through and we make those same little changes to the International Building Code that really are based on Hartford County and Town of Bel Air. You know, because a lot of times it's information, it's like it says the governing body. So we take out governing body and we put the Town of Bel Air in, and that's the change we do when we do the code. So we go through the entire code and make those little amendments and changes, and that's the ordinance that will be before you for receipt. And I have that all prepared. I've been working on it for like 3 days to try to make sure that it's all nice without any errors as best as possible. And I will be providing you with that so you can review them as well. So the building code is also, of course, the International Building Code, International Residential Code, the International Mechanic Code. In addition, this year we're adding 2 new ones, which is the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code, as well as the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. And of course, the plumbing and gas fitting standards of the town, that's with regard to the codes with regard to how you install water pipes and things of that nature. And then we got the electrical standards for the electricians' work that is done in town. So there's 3 different codes that will be put before you. I've made the changes and the omissions and the deletions, and I'll be giving you that Monday night for a receipt. And we would like to have a public hearing on July the 15th, which is our meeting in July, and also have a vote on it that same evening.
So I understand that you'll have to make the deletion, you'll have to make the edits that reflect this is the Town of Bel Air's code as opposed to the international code. Will we also get, will there be reflections of what was changed from the most previous edition of the code?
The only thing that you'll get is what the code is, and then the changes that were made this year.
When you
and
say
the other changes are already on this document, in this code.
Okay,
So the changes that have been throughout history are in this document.
okay, so the code that you get from the international group is reflective of the change, right?
Yeah.
But it's reflective of the changes that have been made from year to year.
Yes, they're not in the actual international code, but they're in our ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah. Did I answer that okay for you?
Yeah, I'm just, I understand it's the international code, I'm just curious what it is that we're ratifying and what changes are, actually being made that will have substantive impact in the town.
I think once you see the document that I prepared for the actual ordinance, it is the actual ordinance for the code, you will be under to fully understand what changes represent. They're not vague by any means. They basically spell out what the change is.
Just so we all can understand, including me, could you give us an example? Like, are they changing, well, for instance, a long time ago when you had a water heater, you did not need that expansion tank. Then they changed the code and you did need an expansion tank on your water heater.
Mm-hmm.
So are those types of things that are being changed spelled out in some fashion in a summary so we know? I know the international code has been around and it gets readopted and changed every so often. And sometimes jurisdictions do pick up the changes and sometimes they don't. I know it's important for us to sort of be the same as the county since they're doing our review.
Yeah. So one thing, I'm just turned to a page here. One thing that one of the amendments is that we're adding a change for defining a structure for unfit for human occupancy. So we went through and said a structure is unfit for human occupancy whenever the code official finds that such structure is unsafe, unlawful, or because of the degree to which the structure is in disrepair, lacks maintenance, etc. So that is different than the actual international code by a little bit, because we changed, Hartford County felt that it needed to be changed a little bit to reflect more of what we need to accomplish here in Hartford County. So that then is placed in here.
So we are adopting what Hartford County has adopted.
Absolutely,
There
yes.
you go.
Just so, because they are a reviewer and so forth like that, we want to
It's
stay
important to be
consistent with
consistent.
them. Yes,
Right, or we're going to have a mess.
yes.
Got it. So we'll have a list of those type of things that are being
Yep,
changed.
and they're all in red, and the ones that are, a lot of times things are deleted. Like Harford County won't want like a section of it because it really doesn't pertain to us because of weather conditions or something of that nature. So they strike out paragraphs, and you'll see that's all red line through.
Got it. All right.
And I'm sorry, just one last clarifying question. Is that red line through from the International Code in its latest edition, or is that red line through from the Bel Air Code as it currently stands?
It's through the latest edition of the International Code.
Thank you.
Yep.
So just to be completely redundant here. So Harford County probably did not just blindly adopt the international code. They looked at it, they debated it, and they made their decisions about how much of the international to follow and how much not to follow. Is that correct?
Exactly. And believe me, they follow 99%. It's just simple things a lot of times, like changing the town of Bel Air in certain sections where it talks about like they often change the building official will be the director of public works and things of that nature.
But Harford County just normally just adopts whatever the international code is.
Yes.
Whether they think it makes sense for the people and the builders and the building community and the people that make a living in this county.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And do you know what, I mean, so that's adopted by the county council, they vote on that?
Absolutely. They
Okay.
they voted on it on March the 19th of this year.
Do you know
And
whether
then it
was
became in effect on March the 29th.
Do we know whether that was unanimous or not?
I do not know that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
You
Next-
should have a good month to review that since it's we don't have a meeting the first week of July. So
Yeah, I think it would be probably a good idea to go back and look at what happened at the county council meetings, which are also recorded in there, just to see if anybody came in and had any real heartburn over anything. From my years with the county, I don't really remember anything being terribly contentious on any of the building code, electrical code, all that, the international codes when they changed. Anything else on the building codes, electrical codes? All right. Next, we have Resolution 1233-24, fiscal year 2024, the budget amendment. Lisa Moody.
Back to the budget, guys. Never done with that. So this is for FY '24. Introduction next week, public hearing in July. I'm still tweaking the budget amendment, in all honesty, but what I would like to do is just go over like a very high level review with you all. From the revenue side, you all will see changes to ARPA with both savings and some additional costs in there with regard to our ARPA projects from fiscal year '24. You'll see an increase in real estate taxes, a reduction in business corp taxes, very similar to what you saw in the fiscal year '25 budget because of the new law. Our red light camera and our false alarms will show slight reductions as well. We received various grants this year that funded different capital projects, so you'll see increases in our grants. We just didn't know about those when we put the budget together. Our police state aid came in higher than the budget. Again, if you remember from the FY '25 budget, that's not something that we get during the budget process. We really don't know that until we get into the fiscal year. You'll also see an increase in income taxes. I know we've had some discussions during the FY '25 process as well on that. Our Bel Air Armory fees, very strong this fiscal year, so you'll see an increase in that category. As well as our equipment vehicle sale proceeds. You might remember when I went over the FY '23 audit. Same is true with FY '24. So we're very conservative when we estimate sale price of what we think we're going to get for our vehicles. But we also had some 23 vehicles that were, we did not physically purchase them until 24 and then weren't able to sell them. Interest on investments, you'll also see an increase there. Rates have held very steady on the investment side, and we've taken full advantage of that with long-term. When I say long-term, I'm talking about 24 months CDs. But our LGIP has been very strong in the 5.25 to 5.4 range the entire fiscal year. So that's a very strong category. You'll see changes in our transfer from capital reserve. So what I have right now is actually, let me back up. So we estimated in the budget that we were going to utilize $432,000 from capital reserve. Again, my analysis is not quite complete yet. However, just from savings and removing a project was delayed to fiscal year 25, there's already $100,000 savings that we will not be taking from the capital reserve. So kind of very similar to ARPA, capital reserve, you know, you're just going to see those fluctuations on the revenue side based on those expenses. And then our transfer from leave payout reserve, we had 2 retirees this year that exceeded the $5,000 per policy. So we'll be removing that from the leave payout reserve. Now on the expenditure side, in like the Armory, for example, we have the window project going on in the Armory, with a piece of that coming out of Community Development Block Grant. But we did not put this in the 24 budget because we had been waiting and waiting on MHT. It finally came through, so we have to increase that budget for that project by $241,000. We had some additional maintenance to the Armory itself that needed to be completed this year. That equated to about $50,000. In town buildings, we obviously are complete now with this project here with Town Hall, the Police Department. But we paid, you know, Whiting Turner, their final bill. Our AV system, East Shore Sound, their final bill. We had some residual furniture. So all of that you're going to see in this budget amendment as well. ARPA is paying for those costs, so it is a wash. We had also had some savings, like I mentioned, but also some removal of some projects in the town buildings. For example, we delayed the Ma and Pa Comfort Station from 24 to 25, so you're going to see that project come out. Steve's shop had some savings in multiple capital projects this fiscal year, not only in the Armory, but in town buildings as well. So that's good news for the capital reserve, as I mentioned. You'll see throughout the departments savings in salaries, mainly because of vacancies or new hires coming in, so a difference in salaries. You may see some changes in medical insurance with change in coverage with new personnel. So you're just going to see those throughout the budget amendment. We will be increasing legal by about $145,000. We've talked about that throughout the year. However, we did just receive word from Legit last week. We put in a claim, as we did in fiscal year 23, to utilize our ceiling of a $50,000 claim request for the Bott versus Town, and it was just recently approved. So we will be receiving $50,000 of that back. You'll see that on the revenue side, though that $145 remains an expense. You'll see changes in the planning department in their other capital, again, because there are projects that are either being delayed, like the Thomas George Street project. So $916,000 that we had in fiscal year '24, it's being delayed until '25. The Burns Alley project that was in fiscal year '24 is being removed. There's no delay on that. We delayed the Plumtree Park project because we were waiting on a grant, which we did receive. You'll see that in fiscal year '25. There were some additional monies that Kevin needed for wayfinding. He discussed those at the last board meeting with signs being damaged. We didn't anticipate that, so that'll be a budget increase. So again, a lot of positives and minuses coming through here. I also wanted to mention that with all of these changes, Steve had put in a request during fiscal year '25 that we were not able to fund. You all really didn't even see these projects. This was something that we were hoping to be able to handle in the budget amendment, and we can. Is he requested a replacement Ventrac tractor for snow removal, and Steve, maybe you can just talk a little bit about what that entails.
Sure, it's just it's a small utility tractor. We use it a lot for snow removal, and we also use it for grass cutting and so forth like that. And it's getting to the point where it should be replaced, so it's effective for us. We went to the dealer, and he gave us an outstanding buyback for the old one. And it's just like such a great deal that I approached Lisa and I said, we shouldn't not do this deal because we're basically getting a brand new tractor at less than half of what we would usually cost, because he's given us such a great price on the old one, so.
Yeah, the estimate that Steve got was $38,000 with a trade-in of $18,000.
So, I mean, it's just a fantastic deal, and my guys in the shop and everything are like, salivating, but we didn't have it budgeted, and, it's a great working machine, and it really helps us get the sidewalk and so forth clean once the snow flies.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
So this would actually be a separate agenda item for you all, because it is over $25,000. You have to look at the gross amount. You can't look at the net. It is done through a co-op purchase, so it doesn't have to be out and out bid through procurement. So if it's okay with you all, this would be a separate agenda for the approval of this piece of equipment. The other item that Steve approached me on, that again we can do in this budget amendment, is AC for the Public Works shop. It's around $17,000, and Steve, if you'd like to elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's for the main shop area. We had put in a unit down there, and it's just not able to cut the mustard. We were told it definitely would, but it's just on those 95 and 100-degree days or whatever, it's only getting down to about 85 in there with this unit. So I really want to improve the conditions in there for the guys in there, because it gets brutal in the summer. So I think this would definitely help that matter.
That won't come before you as a separate agenda because it's under the $25,000, but you will see that in the budget amendment. So with trying to finalize the budget amendment, the goal is to bring down that $432,000 capital reserve as much as we can. We already took off $100,000, so we're down to $332,000. I believe we can get that down quite a bit more with the additional revenues, some savings in salaries, but that is that's definitely a goal. We also talked about during the fiscal year '25 budget that if there were any projects that we could bring back into fiscal year '24, and utilize not out of capital reserve, but out of savings, that we would like to do that as well. So I've talked to Kevin. There's a possibility that we may be able to fund the Homestead Park Playground that's in fiscal year 25 to be paid out of capital reserve in this budget amendment. I'm not to the point yet that I can tell you that 100%. If we can do that, that would come before you as a separate agenda. I should know tomorrow. It just did not quite get that far for this evening's discussion. I don't know that we'll get to funding that $200,000 play surface. That's in the 25 budget out of capital reserve. So like I said, it's Steve's 2 projects, bringing down the capital reserve in FY24, then it would be funding the playground equipment for Homestead and then taking on the surface. So those are the priorities. So I just wanted you all to know that and make sure that that is okay with you all, how we would fund that. Lastly, we did receive some very good news from Chesapeake employers. It was early this month, maybe the latter part of last month. I came into work one morning and I found a $147,893 check on my desk. That doesn't happen every day. It was for Chesapeake Employers Insurance. And I'll just read you this short couple sentences here. On behalf of our board of directors, I am thrilled to announce that your business earned a corporate dividend from Chesapeake Employers Insurance Company for the performance of your policy with an effective date in 2022. We recognize that your workplace safety record directly contributed to our strong financial performance and is worthy of rewarding. As Maryland's only nonprofit workers' compensation insurance carrier, we are proud to pay member dividends, reinvesting our profits back into our policyholders' business. Thank you for trusting Chesapeake Employers as your workers' compensation insurance specialist of choice. Congratulations again on earning this corporate dividend. Well, that was all well and good, but I had to take it a step further, and I contacted our broker, and he did confirm. So the check is in the it's in the bank. But it was fantastic news. If you think back in the discussion, so when we got our mod rate for our workers' comp in fiscal year 24, that was the first year it finally took a little bit of a decrease. And that's because we picked up 2022 as a year. So that tells you how good that year was. 25, again, we saw our mod rate drop again. 2022 is still in the mix there. So our broker did confirm it. It is in the bank. It is $147,000. What we would like to propose to you all to utilize about $102,000 of this money is to, let's say, reward our employees with a small bonus at the end of this fiscal year, because it's their safety and it's their being aware, knowing that they all know when our mod rate went up. We department heads have meetings. They take them back and discuss it with the staff. We have a great safety program. Between Steve's shop and the police department, they strive very, very hard to make sure that everyone is safe, has their safety equipment. So we feel, when I say we, Michael and Eddie and I talked about this, we'd like to propose to you all to just take, again, about $102,000 of this and give full-time employees who were employed with the town since June 30th of 22, $1,000 bonus. Part-time employees would get $500. Anyone who was employed after June 30th of 2022 would receive $500 full-time, $250 if part-time. And then those dollars also include the FICA and the workers' comp that we would have to pay on top of it. We just thought it would be a nice way to share this with them and also thank them for their hard work, knowing that that commitment, you know, continues. Things do happen from time to time. We all know that accidents happen, that obviously not intentional, but this was a dividend we certainly weren't expecting. So do you have any questions on that? What are your thoughts on that?
I like it. I do. I think it's the right thing to do. As employees work hard and are in dangerous situations a lot of times, and I think they've earned that.
Yeah, I mean, literally speaking, you know, these are not taxpayer dollars. This is a reward that was earned by the employees. And, you know, the town of Bel Air salutes them for that. And I think that it is more than appropriate to show our appreciation for earning all of us this money. You know, it was nothing that we did, nothing that the taxpayers did. This is our wonderful staff. So I think that is more than appropriate.
It's really a terrific incentive. I mean, it really points out the dollars and cents that it costs when you do have people who aren't so aware of safety. And I agree with you, sometimes accidents happen. Yeah. We could have some employee crossing the street and be, you know, struck by an automobile. So it's not always like an employee's fault that there's an injury, but being aware of safety, particularly in Steve's shop and the police department, is, you know, very, very important because of the much greater risk of a much worse injury than for, you know, generally administrative people. So I think it's a terrific incentive and reward.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything everybody said. Yeah.
I will work that into the budget amendment then. Obviously wanted to wait before I did that to talk to you all
So
this
we
evening.
won twice because our mod rate dropped.
Yes, ma'am.
And you got a Christmas check in June.
Our broker was actually very excited, and he had said to me in all his years in the industry, he had never seen a dividend check at that magnitude.
That's a big one.
So, and I know the question had been asked by someone else, you know, will we get another one? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
It depends. Be
But
careful out there.
We'll take it. So this will still leave about $35,000 that will go into the budget amendment to be utilized for whatever we need it to. What I also would like to ask, just because of timing, you all are accepting or approving the introduction of it, of the whole amendment on Monday night. I do need to run this bonus through payroll before June 30th, which is really before the formal approval. I would not do that this week. It would be probably the next payroll week, but is that okay with you all if I did that? Because that's the only way I can make it effective June 30th.
It's okay by me.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Are there any other questions on anything that I went over with the budget amendment? All right, it'll be for introduction, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And here I was concerned the chief wasn't going to get back in time for his piece because he walked out just when you started yours, but you had plenty of time. That was a long budget amendment. The LiveView Technology Surveillance Trailer Lease Agreement.
Yes, ma'am, and fellow commissioners. I would like to have ready for you a presentation of an agenda item for approval for a one-year contract for the LiveView Technology LVT D3 real-time remote surveillance camera trailer system in the amount of $35,000. As we are all aware, with things going on around the nation, we have a huge rise in the number of retail thefts. And we had a great system in FY24. We were a partner with Harford County Department of Emergency Services, and we utilized nearly year-round another system that was from the same contractor. It was almost identical system. It was a remote camera trailer system. DES had leased several of those systems with LiveView Technologies.
and they shared that equipment with us. And we experienced much successes. And we had one system that we used primarily that we posted at strategic parking lot locations at our retail establishments that were getting hit the most. We were able to capture suspect vehicle, registration plates, actual suspect identification information, and close-up shots of all of that information. With that equipment, we were able to close at least a dozen, probably up to 24 cases of retail thefts just by using that system alone. It was very successful. And we also used it for security overwatch at our town events. So unfortunately, the lease between DES and LiveView Technologies ended, and we lost that extraordinary equipment. And as you're aware, when I gave you the budget presentation, we want to renew a contract with that vendor ourselves. And it's going to be for a little over a year, so we have access back with the surveillance camera system. So what we're doing right now, we're working with finance and Mr. Lee to figure out the best way to get that presentation to you, either through piggybacking or through sole source. And the way we can justify sole source is that Maryland law only allows certain vendors to use those types of systems, and it has to be for legitimate law enforcement purposes. Apparently, some vendors are selling some of that information. We just can't have that with the Coordination and Analysis Center. So right now, I'm pretty sure we're going to have that ready for you. Darrell will probably have that to me tomorrow, and I'll be able to have the agenda item ready for presentation to you. And it's going to be effective very early in July because it's for the next fiscal year budget. And the reason the urgency is there is because we have some events coming up that we want to have that system out there kind of keeping an eye on things. So hopefully I'll have that ready for you. If I don't, my people will not be happy with me. So thank you. Any questions?
So this will just mirror pretty much what you described for us back a month or two ago in your
Yes. And the reason we're leasing it is because if you buy it, it won't be upgraded. If you lease it, they'll upgrade it all the time. So this is an upgraded version of that. Yeah.
Got it.
Yes, sir.
All right, any
Thank
further
you.
questions about the camera system? All right, last on our new business for next week will be the appointments to the Committee for Seniors and Citizens in Need, but we are going to discuss those in closed session. So we are now at the staffing update. Mr. Krantz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We currently have an active laborer position posted. We did have the custodian position job posted for a short period of time. We received quite a large influx of candidates, and we also received some interest internally. So we may be promoting internally and hiring a laborer from the outside with regards to that. So that's still up in the air.
I have a thing on my desk that's going to recommend that. So
Okay. There we go. Okay, so we still have active interview and candidate background checking going on for police and dispatch. And the other pending position that I didn't get a chance to post last week is the part-time inspector position for Mr. Klein in Public Works. So we'll be seeing that come up on the job boards pretty soon. And I also passed out the standard printout that Christine in my office prepared for upcoming vacancies on our boards, committees, and commissions.
And looking at that, I know we've had at least 2 applicants for the vacancy on the Board of Ethics. So I know there was a question about the residence of one. Do we have just 2 applicants?
Those are the only 2, and
Okay.
thank you for the reminder, and forgive me, I did not reach out to that person
Okay.
to validate their home residence. I
What
still need to do that.
What I would like to do is have that item on our next work session for a closed session, and hopefully by that time, we will have figured out whether we have 1 viable candidate or 2, and we can move forward from there.
Will do, yeah.
And also thinking ahead, because we only have one legislative meeting in July and August, that's correct?
I believe that is correct.
So I noticed that Mr. Labella's term on the Board of Building Appeals expires mid-August. I also know that that is a board that very rarely meets, but just wanting coverage for their, I know we don't have a commissioner liaison. Mr. Klein, would you be able to gauge Mr. Labella's interest in returning to the Board of Building Appeals?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that we stay on the ball before it's next month and it's the next month after that and the term has expired. So, thank you.
Yep.
All right. If that's all we have for staffing update, the next item is calendar. I know we all got a new calendar, so if there's anything missing, we can let Mr. Krantz and Ruth know, and they'll put it on. And I'll take a look at it. Anything on the calendar? Or shall we move on to the discussion of the park rules signs? All right, I think it's the discussion of the park rules signs.
Madam Chair, I'd ask that this be added to the agenda just because, you know, there was a lot of discussion about the signs and everything, and Director Small has some great solutions for the verbiage on the signs and all that. I'm perfectly good with all of that, but when I saw the sign, my initial reaction is, let's just take the pot leaf off the sign.
I agree with you.
Okay.
It bothers me. I just don't want to see it.
I,
On the sign or in the
there was
park.
discussion, I couldn't figure out where everybody landed, so
You know,
that's fine with me.
To quote Martha Jefferson, it is not only unseemly, it is unsightly. And I think we'd be better off leaving it off.
That's
Just
fine.
don't want it on there. I agree.
That was the only thing I had on that.
There you go. All right, well, that was easy enough. And then where did we decide to remove the under 12 no supervision?
Yes.
Okay.
That's being replaced by unauthorized motor vehicles prohibited except in parking areas. When I did research to other municipalities and other counties, that was just about on every one of them. And that's kind of floated to the top.
All right, commissioners' comments. Nobody has any? None. All right. In that case, we will be moving into closed session. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that this meeting will be closed under the provisions of the Maryland Open Meetings Act, General Provisions, Section 3-305B1 and Section 3-305B3. The topics of discussion will be to discuss the appointment of officials to the Committee for Seniors and Citizens in Need, and to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related thereto. The reasons for the closed session discussion of the above topics is because public discussion of candidates' names, qualifications, experience, and background could discourage people from volunteering for public service or compromise their privacy rights, and because public discussion regarding the acquisition of real property could jeopardize the integrity of the negotiation process and or the confidentiality of sensitive information, or prematurely reveal legal or financial considerations that might prevent the board from securing property for public use at a reasonable cost.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, any discussion? Mr. Krantz?
This is for the vote to go into closed session. It is 7:58 PM. Commissioner Rutledge?
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Chance?
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
Okay, we'll now move into closed session, and if I may not be too presumptive, I do not believe we're going to return to open session except to adjourn.
That would be correct.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, I'd like to excuse 3 of my employees, the chief,
Absolutely.
Angela, and Steve.
They are excused.